Yeah.
So welcome everybody to the Friday Fireside Chat, Ybrant's first webinar. The topic for today is on-premise versus on-cloud. So yeah, purpose of joining here to look at those solutions for HR and payroll and examine the pros and cons of both platforms. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And we welcome your experience and value your contribution today. So I mentioned just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you could please stay on mute, limit using the chat function during the webinar. However, please keep your questions. There will be extensive opportunity at the end in a Q&A session, and also we can provide details to get in touch afterwards for any follow-up questions. So we'll just move through to the agenda. I'll briefly run through the format and content of today's webinar. Firstly, I'll introduce our panel members. We'll then go to Steve for his experience on where we have come from, where we are now. So that's a brief look at the HR journey, primarily focused on cloud over the last 30 to 50 years, I guess. Gosh. Over to Indrajit for his input on HR tech processes. Rajesh will give his views on implementation and adoption, and Rajesh will also tell you a bit about Ybrant Partners, how we can support you on your HR transformation journey. We'll then, like I mentioned, have plenty of time to open it up for some Q&A at the end. So moving to next slide, we'll just highlight the key takeaways from today's webinar. Answer those basic questions on cloud, what cloud could be used for, the various types of cloud, its security, whether an on-premise, on-cloud or a hybrid model would best suit your organisation, and answer any of those questions regarding switching your HR applications to cloud and its longevity. We'll move on to introducing our guest panel speakers today. We have Dr. Steve Foster. He's an HR technology transformation specialist. As a managing consultant, Steve has delivered HR technology-based transformation projects to many high-profile organisations, including strategic technology planning, process improvement, and managing business change. Prior to that, he worked in a range of HR roles in the energy sector. As an academic and researcher, his primary interest is how organisations make sense of and derive value from HR technology. He also supervises doctoral MBA and MSc candidates on HR and related topics. So thank you, Steve, for joining us. Excuse me. Indrajit is a senior HR leader with over 20 years of diverse industry experience and has significant international HR exposure, having managed culturally diverse teams in Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia and Europe. He is the founder and managing partner at Masflair, a new age leadership solutions firm. Indrajit has done extensive work in the areas of HR strategy, organisation change and transformation, organisation development, leadership and talent development. On to Rajesh. Rajesh is a senior IT leader with over 20 years of experience. He has worked predominantly on ERP solutions in finance, HR and supply chain domains. He is the founder and managing director at Ybrant Partners, an IT consulting company focused HR and finance solutions. Prior to this, Rajesh worked extensively in IT and at manufacturing, telecoms, retail and pharma industry sectors, and delivered multiple complex projects, implementations and transformation models across the globe. Rajesh is keen on empowering people with the right tools and applications that essentially will make all of our lives easier. So I'll now hand over to Steve, our first guest panel speaker, to set the scene and discuss the key theme of today. Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Imogen. So good morning, everybody. So my job really is to set the scene a little bit and provide a high-level view of what the cloud is and some of the benefits, and then we'll get into some of the detail. I think the cloud is very, very important. It's all around us. We all use the cloud at various times, and it's changed our lives. It's transformed it. Where would we be without some of these applications? A recent Deloitte survey. I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Is it possible to go on mute, please? Thank you so much. A recent Deloitte survey found that 60% of organizations see moving to the cloud as a priority. And as I say, that all these applications are ones that we use all the time. We don't even think about the fact that we're going on the cloud. If you can just hit the next slide, please. Thank you. And the whole point about the cloud is it simplifies and allows connectivity. Many of the applications that are available now are only available through the cloud. And I think one of the main arguments of today will be that remaining in an on-premise environment may well mean you're left behind, given the enablers that the cloud will bring. And I think a useful analogy, if you move on, please, and a useful analogy to think about is in the early days of the Industrial Revolution. And at that time, if you were a factory or an organization, you had to be near a source of power. You needed to be near a coal mine or a river to get access to the power that drove your factory. And it meant that manufacturers had to generate their own power. So not only were they producing things, they're also running a coal mine or a river. The key change that transformed everything was when cheap electricity became available. If you could hit the next button. So cheap electricity changed everything. And it meant that you could set up a factory anywhere you wanted, as long as you could be near a power line. You didn't have to run a coal mine or be near a river and so on. The message there is that the power became a commodity, and computing power is just the same. That why would you generate your own electricity? Why would you generate your own computing power when you can buy that commodity from a central source? It produces so many more benefits that arguably you wouldn't move to on-premise as a starting point. So I just want to take a quick look at some of what those benefits look like. If you could move to the next slide, please. So the first one is about upgrades, which are painless. For the HR and payroll function, it means that there is less downtime when you're upgrading because it's all coming through the cloud. There is far less reliance on the IT function. So I've spoken to organizations that have changed their upgrade path from weeks to minutes and hours. And it means that if you're running payroll, you don't have to take payroll out for a week while you're upgrading your system. From an IT manager's point of view, the IT investment is very logical, and we'll talk soon in this session about the business case for this, but it's much, much easier to implement cloud technology than on-premise, and it's much easier to support it. You don't need to employ an army of IT people to manage your infrastructure. You buy it as a commodity from a central source. It means that budgeting is much easier as well. Costs are low, and it's easier to predict and manage from a cost control point of view that computer power, that computer resource. I talked in one of the previous slides about the connectivity of the cloud. Most connectivity now is built around cloud solutions. So APIs allow connections to other technologies, which has got huge implications for improving the quality of reporting across systems. That is much more complex to do in an on-premise environment. So from an IT connectivity point of view, the cloud has huge, huge benefits over on-premise. And I guess linked to the budgeting piece as well, the idea of it being scalable. When you want to add new functionality to your setup that perhaps needs greater computing power, you don't need to invest heavily in all server equipment. It means you can simply switch on that power as and when you need it and add greater functionality. And it opens up the idea of software as a service, and it opens up the idea of being able to create new service delivery models that power your organization. And finally, and maybe this is one of the big resistance points with current on-premise customers, cloud technology has got proven security and resilience. What I've seen as a great source of resistance from organizations is they don't trust the cloud. They want to put a ring around their own infrastructure because they don't believe that it's secure. Well, many big organizations, including the US military and the Pentagon, who need absolute security, are using cloud technology now. It is highly secure, perhaps more so than on-premise. So that's maybe an argument for the internal IT function to look at when they're considering this. So that's kind of my very high level run through what we see as the benefits of cloud-based technologies. I think it all comes into those categories, different benefits for IT, HR and payroll, but overall you can see the direction of this inevitably is towards cloud technologies. Okay, back to you, Imogen.
Thank you, Steve. That's really sort of food for thought there, you know, relating that the key change being cheap electricity and how revolutionary that was. And you know, now we're talking about keeping data on the cloud and you know, how that's impacted businesses worldwide, and especially through COVID pandemic times, which no one could have predicted, and has kept us all a lot more accessible and data a lot more safer. I think how you ended that leads perfectly into what Indrajit's going to speak about, is HR tech and the overall business case. So yeah, Indrajit, would you like to take it away?
Sure. So good morning and good evening to all the participants in this webinar. So there are a few questions just to build on, you know, from what Steve was talking. I want to bring a little more perspective from a HR practitioner, you know, viewpoint, organization viewpoint. So when we discussed about this topic, you know, few questions which were coming in my mind, I thought of, you know, briefly, you know, highlighting some of them. So the first one is that, you know, what's the business case for, you know, HR tech implementation? Because whenever you are implementing HR technology in the company, there has to be a clear business case which needs to be articulated. So as Steve rightly mentioned, some of the very important aspect of, you know, between on-premise and cloud offering, if we look into few things which really stand out in my mind, are cloud is definitely offering a much more scalable, flexible opportunity, which has got a tremendous speed in terms of you know, executing the whole project. And also increasingly HR functions are nowadays you know, becoming very cost conscious, as overall organization post pandemic are really looking into every driver of costs to be managed well. So therefore, a cloud implementation in many ways is, you know, pretty much, you know, cost effective. One of the other important thing in this area is SHRM in their, you know, one of the recent work talked about best of the breed or BOB solutions, where if you are not looking one integrated solution, but you have an opportunity to take few solution and create your own solution. Okay, of course, it has got its own merit and demerit, but that's the, you know, clear opportunity for an organization depending on what life cycle they are. Steve also talked about the, you know, updates. So therefore, on-premise will come with a lot many aspects of maintenance related cost over the years. However, if I get a product which comes with regular updates and patches, then probably my life becomes far more easier. So when you are creating a business case, probably some of these elements need to be, you know, carefully observed. Coming to the second question, which came in my mind, was that, you know, what are the critical question from a, you know, organization or HR side one need to ask when you are deciding on the HR technology? I think, you know, COVID has told us the, you know, real importance of remote working, especially, you know, this part of the world where remote working was limited to few technology companies. But moment you look into more brick and mortar company and all kind of consumer product company, I think remote working has got a tremendous momentum at this point of time. The second aspect is that it should, one of the important aspects that how are we going to leverage the power of data, especially for HR decision making, especially in the area of HR analytics. Okay, and today one of the very important aspect of HR is that how HR is able to empower the employees and empower the line managers in terms of taking their own decisions. So therefore, these are some of the critical element one needs to question when they are looking into or shortlisting the right HR technology. Are they providing this kind of an opportunity in terms of data analytics? Okay, or is it purely transaction and process management and limiting to that? Okay, so depending on again what exactly you want to get out of this whole solution, you need to check on that front. In the HR implementation journey, in my own experience, I have seen that it requires a mindset change. It also requires HR team to understand the new structure which is coming into order. It needs a very important element of role clarity post you implement an HR technology, because a large part of the HR transaction, when it is automated, then people have time and opportunity to reskill, upskill them in terms of doing proper HR business partnering work, which can add tremendous value to the organization. So therefore, this role change of HR is something which is very, very important and significant. The fourth point is again very important, not only for HR technology implementation, but any kind of technology implementation, because it's always about change management. So therefore, like in the design thinking process, if you apply in the HR, what happens that you would like to include people, include your employees, include your manager in the initial stage of even shortlisting a product, when you are implementing a product, when you are trying to create education and training for your employees. Okay, so greater the involvement, I would say the acceptance of the product would be far more, and the HR team or a IT team which is responsible for implementing it, they would be would be probably a few notch ahead in this whole journey. And finally, the last point which I felt that how do we really enhance, and that's a question, and probably my esteemed colleagues will be also able to give some idea during this course of the conversation in terms of the user experience. Okay, what if we really look into what's happening, that today with enormous amount of data and content which is available, the flip side of it is that our attention span is continuously coming down. And therefore, it is very, very important that whenever we are implementing a new HR technology, at least that's my profound belief over the years, is that can we make it really simple? Okay, so simplicity is one of the very important element, because line managers and employee, they have their own several priorities. If I want them to really focus on some of the HR tech application, the first thing would be, is it simple to do? The ease of doing, the simplicity. Okay, can we bring down the 10-page form to a 1-pager? Okay, so that understanding, and therefore in the mapping of the process in terms of looking what kind of best practices which are available, and some of these cloud-based technology, they come with a huge amount of best practices. So therefore that can be quite enabling for an organization to really look at. I'm not saying that whether those best practices would be your best practice, that is you who have to decide it. But at the same time, it gives you a whole lot of opportunity to relook into that and try to see that, are you going to create the right kind of user experience? So these are some of the thoughts which I thought I will, inject while we are discussing this. Yeah, so over to you, Imogen.
Thanks, Indrajit. It's very, very interesting. I really like the way you mentioned the word simplify, or simplicity. We too often probably overcomplicate things, especially when it comes to HR tech implementations, and actually for the benefit of the end user or that HR team, we maybe don't need to.
and also the driving change management. And this is, you know, our business is a real area of continuous improvement, whether it's reacting to a legislation change or technology change. But, you know, I think that's important. And yeah, the cloud has only helped that. I've got a couple of questions. I will save them to the end, though. I think if we move slide then and on to Rajesh. Lalitha?
Yeah, thank you, Imogen.
Sorry. Thanks, Rajesh.
Yeah. And do you have a couple of questions to go first, or do you want me to start off with the my points?
I'll save my questions for the end as well.
Okay.
I think
yeah,
you want to move on to adoption and implementation.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, where you are. Thanks for joining in. Also, our speakers here, eminent speakers, have already spoken from the point of view how Steve mentioned about how things used to be and how it has moved on and how important it is in terms of how the cloud solutions and how the world is changing and getting closer to the post-COVID situation as to how we can go ahead and build on it. And Indrajit has also touched upon the HR tech, how important it is and what kind of processes need to be implemented. What I would like to do to build on these is from a client side perspective, Indrajit has given and a business point of view how the senior management need to look at how they have covered. I'd like to go ahead and go from the technology point of view, from a consulting point of view, how we need to go ahead and look at what kind of challenges that we see organizations face and how we are trying to go ahead and really understand is on one side, but what the kind of challenges what organizations face in terms of adoption. The way that I see is that organizations can be put into different buckets. So whether they are in still to start with a business request or a business case, or they have already had a business case and they are trying to go ahead and start with an implementation journey. And then those who are have completed the implementation journey, but struggling to adopt. So adoption always comes to the last. But what I would like to say is that giving you a very simple analogy that you don't plan for the baby after the baby is born, you know. So you should go ahead and start to plan. How would I want to adopt it? Whether you're trying to put your solution on cloud or on premise, the first and the foremost thing is, have you thought about how you would want to adopt? And then the question really is that how easy or simple is it for you to go ahead and bring everything into cloud? So what is the order of priority in terms of how we want to go ahead and migrate into the cloud, and what kind of solutions can be easily adopted? It's not like I switch off the button on premise and I switch it on cloud. Everything is done. On cloud is going to go ahead and take care of it. Maybe the simple answer is no. But then how would you go ahead and start to look at what is it that I need to do in terms of bringing everything on cloud and still be able to have high rates of adoption? The fundamental point to what we have here is that the way that the OEMs, the software application makers and the kind of applications what we have, whether it is the like of SAP or Workday or Oracle or anyone on the anyone out there, they are either being built as a one-stop shop or addressing a specific objective or a specific challenge area is what they are trying to go ahead and build these applications. And going forward, we are trying to see more and more of these applications come on board, and they talk about how we are trying to actually add intelligence to it. And there are new technologies, whether it's artificial intelligence or otherwise blockchain, so on and so forth, they are coming in. And this is where it starts to get complex and complicated. So one of the key things, what I would say is that take your step and understand what is the key challenge area, what you are trying to solve. how you are trying to go ahead and look at if this particular national ID is one of the key area. Would I be able to solve it if I'm working in multiple geographies? Is it capable? So starting as basic as that, you would then start to look at complex processes, and these processes need to be looked at and get a buy-in from the top senior management, and then look at the giving it a meaningful way in terms of processes, organization structure, the kind of technology that you are using, the data what you are trying to go ahead and put in, how it is all making a change. And all of these need to be thought through early on in the day, not after you have gone live. So fundamentally, there are some of these reasons for the failures of the major programs, and that can be easily avoided when we go ahead and think through in all of these areas. And also, if you are trying to go ahead and do a proof of concept, if that is what is your approach, think about it where you can look at a complex sort of solution area or a complex process area, and then try and go ahead and build on this. So this is what we advise to the clients when you are trying to go ahead and deliver. And another point, what I would like to say is that the kind of experience what everyone is trying to get because of the latest technologies and the kind of security and the stability and the robust applications what you can go ahead and bring in through the right kind of communication, through the right kind of training, the adoption rate can significantly go high. And because everyone is aware of what is going on, and at the same time, the kind of point which Indrajit brought up, where it's about simplicity, it's about attention, it's a span of attention. Attention span is also something that we need to keep in mind. It's not about pushing everything out there out the door and then say, yeah, you go ahead and adopt it. So there got to be a certain level of pace at which you put the applications out there in the market, out there for employees to pick up. Give them the right kind of incentives, how they can go ahead and adopt a solution, why it would make a difference in their overall experience. And every time there is the visibility that you need to say that are my employees actually getting a better experience? Is that maybe in the onboarding experience, or that may be in the succession planning where they are trying to go ahead and move into other roles? Does the company provide everything what you are trying to do? Look at the kind of applications that what you may feel suitable, which are more from a technology centric versus process centric, which may be easier and which will go ahead and give you a lot of benefits. So from that point of view, adoption is quite critical in terms of how you are trying to bring the stability and the better experience, but at the same time, you can leverage that to build your productivity levels. So these are few things. Everything need to be tied in such a way that you are able to see a better tomorrow, and that is simply the way go forward as organizations are investing more and more in the cloud. And the latest upgrades are always looking at cloud. Cloud is the way forward. However, the point what I have is that should I go entirely onto cloud or not is a question that we need to go ahead and answer as we get to the next phase of this particular discussion. I would leave for any questions that have come out, and then we could probably pick up those questions and answer them appropriately. Yeah. Over to you, Imogen. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Rajesh. Is that the last slide? Is there implementation? We covered implementation.
There are a couple of questions there, Imogen, which seem to be pointed at me. Should we take questions now or after your session on about Ybrant, Rajesh?
Please go ahead with the questions.
Okay, so
sure. Do you want to pick up that first one, Steve? Then, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the question there, in case people can't see it, is Does it mean that organisations have to adopt SuccessFactors, Workday, and so on if they move to the cloud? I think my answer to that is, well, Rajesh would prefer that you probably move to SuccessFactors. I think the answer is it doesn't necessarily point you in that direction. The cloud is actually a great leveler for software, and most HR payroll applications now are available as cloud software. In fact, many of them are only available as cloud software. It's getting much more difficult to buy software that is run in an on-premise environment. So from that point of view, no, it doesn't limit what you can do. I would argue that the cloud actually extends your options in terms of acquiring software. Another part of that question is, does it make it difficult to exit from the platform? And again, I would argue that it probably simplifies it because information data is held in a consistent format, so the cloud providers can give you your software. It's much easier than having to move it from say an on-premise environment to the cloud or the other way around. It's a well-worn path now. People change their software quite regularly, and the techniques for doing so are very slick. So I don't believe it makes it difficult to exit. And the final part of that question, which is around the terms and conditions for data security, again, I think it's a well-worn path, and the techniques for doing so are very, very, very strong. So as you can see, I'm kind of a fan of the cloud, because I think I go back to my original point about electricity, in that why would you generate your own computing power? In the same way, why would you generate your own electricity? It doesn't make sense. And that probably leads to the second question I have here, which is interesting point. Sarang says, it sounds like it's more of an IT decision than an HR decision to move to the cloud. I think what the cloud does is it makes it more democratic. It was probably true in the 1970s that IT really led the way in terms of technology and shaped it. I think in 2021, 2022, HR needs to have a greater say in what the technology is underpinning their systems. HR and payroll know what they want from the technology, and IT can be an enabler, but I kind of would argue that the decision itself should not be in the hands of IT alone. Because HR can acquire that technology by and large without much support from IT, and that's probably too extreme. But I don't think it's an IT decision any longer. Maybe open that up for debate. Is it more an equal decision between HR and IT these days, and the cloud is enabling that more democratic position? Maybe that's a good starting point for a debate. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Yeah, Indrajit, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think no, I would agree with Steve. In my own experience, what I have seen that initially it was purely IT driven, but today, whenever you are implementing any HR technology, HR has a lot to offer, a lot to say. But again, it depends on the competence part of HR. So if the HR leader and the HR team, they are quite pro with the HR technology and they have a more sound understanding and have done their work, then they can really play a far more active and influencing role in the whole process. But having said that, there are also some organizations who would not like to look HR technology as a separate stream. It may be one integral part of their IT roadmap, IT strategy, where HR is one such component. So yes, it is yes and no. So it depends purely in terms of organization to organization and the competency and the skill sets for HR in this area. So that's my take.
I think one of the points that maybe need to emphasize here is that the producers of software are highly focused on the cloud, and it is more likely, because they're designing software to be deployed via the cloud, that will be the direction of future software development. And maybe the voice of HR needs to be, we need the latest functionality. That technology is not now available in on-premise. So that's where the voice of HR needs to come to the front. And maybe IT doesn't always understand that perspective.
Yeah, very true, Steve, and Indrajit, you have put it very nicely. Just to give you a very simple example, a brief one. A few years ago, one of the retail chains was trying to implement a cloud solution. One of the key things is that we were stuck in a meeting room for a 2-day workshop. And the first impressions that I had was that there were 30 people, all very close, but when the meeting started, the first thing what they were looking at is hopes and fears, So all through in the organization, it is the IT which has been driving it. And the HR, from that point of view, has been looking at what kind of challenges that are going to come on to us, where this is being told to us to go ahead and implement this solution. The hopes and fears is where they have started off, and then started to look at it. The fundamental change in the way that it has been explained to them, when I started to go through a couple of pictures, where I said, now every time when you are trying to have an opportunity for you to design it, and then you need to go, you have the gift in your hands to say either you like it or you do not, and then understand what kind of processes that are getting impacted is is one of the hopes that really everyone liked around the room. And then this helped them to make a decision what kind of application processes or the HR processes that can be applied onto the system, and then which can be prioritized. So that is one route where we can look at, when we are trying to change the process, what kind of an impact IT would have, rather than IT would go ahead and drive their way into it and then say, you go ahead and implement it. It's about understanding what is the impact of the process that would have an IT, and therefore what IT would really need to be doing here.
Thanks, Rajesh. I think we'll pose a question across to Indrajit. We've got different organisations are at a different stage in their HR maturity life cycle. How can such standard products fulfil needs across the spectrum? That's a good one, Saran.
So I think you are right. It's any standard product to that extent. Before you decide what you want to buy, you need to look at yourself, right? Like if you want to buy a standard size shirt, you would like to know what is your size and what is your fit. Then only you will go and pick it up. Okay. So here I think if I can use a similar analogy, it is very important to do your own assessment that what stages or what life cycle of HR you are currently in. So if you are into basically as an HR more into transaction management, so your requirement may be, I just need to do a efficient payroll management. I want to manage time. I have factories which runs in 4 shifts. Okay. I have multiple geography where, I need employees to do their HR transaction, workflow management, etc. Then you have a set of need and basis which you decide. But if you are in a different orbit where you are looking into a great solution for talent management, succession planning, doing continuous performance feedback, or leveraging the whole bit of HR analytics, or taking your LMS to a different level to create great learning experience and engagement experience, then definitely your needs are very different. So I need to do my own assessment where I am, and then try to map with the standard products. Of course, when we say standard product, there would be multiple standard products. Okay, so basis your need analysis, you can interact with such providers and assess the compatibility of it. And as we discussed earlier, if we are looking into some kind of a best of breed solution, then you may find that maybe everything is fine, but that standard provider may not have a great LMS. Okay, so for LMS you can go to somebody else and probably you can integrate that. So that's my take on this particular point. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Indrajit. You did just answer sort of one of my questions. So almost take it piece by piece, maybe look to a vendor for a certain platform. But what I'm hearing at the moment is all the real benefits around the cloud. And I want to know if you're keeping any secrets. So are there any barriers to moving to the cloud? Have you experienced any sort of real negative customer experience or functionality, a system functionality that has promised and not delivered? Yeah, sort of give us the real dirt if there's anything that you're keeping in, or is it as good as it sounds? Either Indrajit or Rajesh, if you'd.
I will just add one point on that. So in my experience, I have not come across as such any shortcoming of a cloud-based product. It may be shortcoming in terms of a particular choice of product, okay, choice of a vendor who has certain functionality not built to that extent it is expected. So that's one. Secondly, I think within the organization, and I'm not an expert on that, so just a kind of a disclaimer on that. Within the organization, while dealing with IT teams and other relevant decision makers, I think the security aspect of cloud is always a debate which goes on in an organization. Okay, I really don't know what is the right or wrong. I'm not an expert, but that's an important debate which happens in an organization. So one need to be mindful of that. Yeah. Over to you, Rajesh.
Yeah, thank you. Imogen, can you say the question once again? Repeat the question again.
Really, just to highlight if there are any negatives or barriers that you have, in your opinion, around the cloud, or what you've seen from customers in terms of functionality or customer experience.
Yeah, okay. So thank you. See, as we speak to multiple clients and they are in their various journey points, one of the key things that comes up definitely is around the understanding of what cloud is. And if I go ahead and go with one vendor, cloud vendor, would that be enough for my entire organization? So otherwise, it's cloud all about money. Is there anything that what we are trying to do? So there are a few questions that keep coming up, but fundamentally the answer to it is that, and also if the cloud is secure enough or not. So simply put, the answer to all of this is that we cannot put all our eggs in the same basket. And at the same time, if we are trying to go ahead and look at putting all your processes in separate systems and then struggle with it, it's the right balance is what is really required. And from that point of view, if I want to go ahead and ask you to put all your emails into SAP, for example, no, you will not be able to go ahead and go with it. Or even if it is something that you would want to go ahead and put all your HR into Microsoft, that may not be an entirely the right thing to do. So for every solution that is required, the kind of process what you are trying to do, so there is a different vendor what you need to go and look into. And this is where some of the guys tend to get it a bit different, and where the experience can drive down. Yes, Steve, please go ahead.
Yeah, the main barrier that I've seen to the cloud is around, it's a byproduct of the security question. So it's often a restriction if an organization wants to build its own tools and then exchange data with things that are held on the cloud. So by definition, those things that are held in cloud solutions are very, very secure, and they may not like organizations sending data backwards and forwards from their own tools to protect the integrity the cloud solution. So I know from experience, a lot of local councils, local authorities like to build bespoke tools themselves and draw on that data, and there's often an issue there. However, I'm a great believer in using software that is standard rather than trying to do your own thing and fitting to standard. So it forces you to think about how you use the tools. So that's the main barrier I found. It's when you want to have your own tools communicate with the cloud, and it breaches security issues. But I don't think that is a barrier. I think that's a benefit, actually. It forces you to think about security.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I mean, sorry, Rajesh.
Yeah. One other question that keeps coming up is that if I move everything into cloud, is that all? Is it all done? So the question is that no. The answer is that it's no. We have a lot that we need to go ahead and work on it, and then we need to go ahead and make sure that you can now focus on the application rather than you worry about the infrastructure, the kind of support, the upgrades that are required from infrastructure can all be now passed on to the cloud providers, and that way you will be able to focus on the core of your application and the way that you want to service your customers, internal and external. So this is where many of the questions that come up on top of what Steve mentioned about the security side and the way that we have the multi-cloud vendor is something that we need to understand. How do I then integrate is another question that comes up if there are multi-cloud. So the way to do it is also around the APIs, how organizations are providing these days. It's about offering a uniform data model and how you go ahead and port the data across into different systems to complete your process is one such area what you can think about.
Okay, I think there might be another question, but I don't know. I'm mindful of time, Rajesh, if this is a good opportunity to speak a bit about Ybrant, and then we can open it up at the end for any further questions.
Please, if you can move to the slide, please. Thank you, everyone. I mean, it has been a splendid discussion here. With all those points which have started to come out here, I would like to highlight this. Ybrant is in the middle of taking up all of these into the market and helping the organizations understand what cloud is about. And as a UK-based IT consulting company, I mean, of course, we are based in India, UK and India-based IT consulting company. We are focused on putting people first for those organizations that try and improve the employee experience. We offer HR and finance solutions. And the way that we are trying to do is that we partnered with SAP and we have SuccessFactors is the cloud solution, what we are offering from the HR point of view. And at the same time, we offer travel and expense, which is Concur, SAP Concur is what also we are offering at this time. And what we have is complementing to SuccessFactors. We looked at the kind of applications or the needs that organizations might have. And in this regard, we have built our own IP solutions, and this goes by the name Activa. Activa Factory is where we have a number of solutions which are addressing those gaps which SuccessFactors or any other HR solution is unable to offer. And here is where we come as a key differentiator, and we are offering this to some of our large and global clients, to the smallest client of ours, everything in between. The key focus for us is to be able to help the clients adopt the solutions when we are trying to go ahead and invest so much time and effort and money into each one of these. Our ultimate objective here is that, are you adopting the solutions correctly? And this is where we come in. And we focus on these mid-market companies. We offer for all needs what they have. Is it local to that particular country, or if it is a multi-country solution, or if they are trying to go ahead and go with ask for a bespoke solution, we are the people, we are able to go ahead and deliver to the market needs.
Thanks, Rajesh. So we've got a couple more questions. Go on, Rajesh. We have got a couple more questions in the chat, but I think as well we should open this up for the entire audience now. If you've not popped your question in the chat, but if you want to raise your hand, come in to ask any of the panelists any questions, please do. Rajesh, did you want to mention something?
Yeah, so I see that Sarang has asked a question. I just wondered if this has been answered, if that needs to be picked up.
So I think the last one we can pose to you regarding cloud platform having its advantages, but also some limitations. In case of on-premise, we can customize the way we want, but on cloud, it has its limitations. Consultants usually say these are product limitations that we can only raise through SAP. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you there. So no, we are absolutely right, Sarang. I mean, every product has its own certain limitations, what we are going ahead, and at the same time, the benefits what we are offering has been improving over the period of time. And for this, at SAP, what we do is we offer a half-yearly upgrades. These days, it used to be quarterly upgrades. Now it has come to a half-yearly upgrades. And in each area, we look at the application needs, how it is helping the clients, and if there is any limitations or the user needs are not being met, there is an opportunity for the customers to log into the SAP customer influence as a channel, and we can go ahead and ask any of these questions. But as we look at the kind of opportunity, what we also have is that do you need to go fully on board with client on cloud solutions? You know, is it on cloud 100%, or is it hybrid, which is a part of on cloud and on premise, or you need to go ahead and go stay on with on premise? So what is going to be your option? And for this, even there are multiple reasons why clients tend to go with on a part hybrid solution. The reason being that there are certain nervousness in certain application processes where you are trying to go ahead and look at, I would like to keep my payroll, or I would like to keep some of my finance related functionalities, which I would like to keep in the on-premise solution. And from that point of view, you would want to do a hybrid solution, and that would have both on-premise for certain business processes and on cloud where you would want to work on, and that is a possibility. And then when you're going fully on cloud, you would like to look at what are the geographies and the features what you would like to go on cloud, and some of them you would want to still go ahead and keep on premise. So that's an option. There are multiple options how you can go ahead and look into. And the kind of challenge what you may face when you are addressing the workshops is where the limitations or the product limitations what you can happen. And we at Ybrant, what we have done for this to address this particular area is that to come up with multiple workaround solutions, and through these workaround solutions, we look at what are the possibilities even before referring back to SAP straight away. And this could be a waste of time where if we are not able to get the right kind of solution, and if the client understands that this is one of these workaround options is suitable for them, while the product in itself need to be upgraded. And we recently have done a number of success factors expert sessions. In these, we have collected a lot of information how this works, and our expert consultants here have done a number of these workshops where we go in and then we address the key questions and the kind of information what the clients are looking for. And this helps us to build the right kind of workaround solutions to offer to the client requirements, and then be able to address the customer needs. You know.
That's great, thank you, Rajesh. I think that's you know, most organisations like to think of themselves as quite unique or individual in their ways of working. So describing it in that way, sort of customizable, if you will, you know, to tailor make their own package of a hybrid model. Yeah, is good.
Yeah.
So we're on the hour. I don't have any hands up to raise any questions. Sarang, thank you for your questions posed. And yeah, we'll open it up. Oh, I will mention before we say that then, I thoroughly enjoyed today. Thank you everybody for joining. We'll definitely be planning more webinars, taking any input, what you'd like to see and what topics we can cover. Try and make them a little bit more interactive, maybe. I think that would be good. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on those social media channels for our future webinars. Thank you. Oh, I should say again, thank you to Steve for joining us today, and Indrajit. It was really, a pleasure talking to you and having your experience and expertise. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you both.
Okay. Do we have any more questions before we wind up? Okay. That's good.
Everyone's busy thinking, Rajesh. Everyone's thinking about what we've said. They're going to go away.
Yeah,
and
we
come
do
back
have
to us with any questions, of course.
Yeah, we are giving them an opportunity to pose any questions after they look at the videos, and then we are always here to support them to anyone if there are any particular questions. Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.